Hey Stephen, welcome back. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm really well. Morning, Jens. Really excited about getting this going this morning.
Yeah, we'll,
Um,
we'll, we'll be fun in getting our heads into how we build an online course for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been thinking a lot about it, so I'm fired up. Looking forward to going through this. I know we've got a kind of mapped out process we're going to be showing people as well. So if you've got some questions, you saw last week's little snip, anybody, and you want to ask some questions or you've got some suggestions, we'd love to get them from
Yeah,
you. You can send them through, DM us any way you can, and we're just going to dive straight in, right?
exactly. So I will be sharing my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how that works. Should be coming up now. Can you see anything?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we've got it here. Yeah.
So it's basically a four-step process with four different phases. And the key point of that is understanding of how do we get yourself understood what you're approaching without spending money, without
Mm-hmm.
spending too much effort. So it's basically like a prototyping process, which helps you to understand what it
Mm-hmm.
is exactly. And it's starting with understanding of uh, who are the different people who are involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be just playing the coach, and you can just give me the answers.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you look, so we zoom in into the players, as I call them, and that's a little bit of like an ecosystem stakeholder mapping perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So who would be involved in the online course topic?
In the preparation of it, you mean?
And look more into like who would be involved in the outcome of it.
So for me, I see the outcome being people that are in e-commerce, um, uh, startups who want to move into a retail format, um, existing retailers.
Hmm. So
Um,
they would be using and the 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 online course basically. There would be
yeah,
users and yeah.
yeah,
Are there
yeah, absolutely.
is there anyone else involved from that perspective?
Well, yeah, because I think malls and locations would get some benefit from this as well. Just understanding the expectations of somebody that wanted to be in that pop-up space.
Yeah.
So yeah, malls, locations, maybe commercial real estate agents would want to understand a little bit more around um, how they could use some of their real estate in a kind of pop-up format as well, because it doesn't have to be in a mall. It could be in a
Yeah.
strip mall in a main street. So I think there's some benefit for all of those guys. I'm a big believer in the more that you understand about the whole topic rather than you're just your little section, then the more opportunities I think you can come across.
Yeah. So it's basically you have key users which we should be
Yeah.
applying the understanding, which is
Hmm.
people in ecom, startups, retailers, and then you said
Yeah.
more towards something like operators, if I understood you right.
Yeah, operators or uh, the actual how would you call them, the space providers. So
Like
operators or space providers,
landlords.
landlords, yeah, locations, malls, real estate agents. So operators and landlords. There is another other section to that. Of course, it's all those people that can that pop up retailing, both landlords and users need, and that's people that have display stands or have shop fittings,
Hmm.
or printers for a point of sale material and all of those sorts of things. So I think there's some benefit in there as well for some of those guys.
How could we? Is it suppliers or how do you call them?
Suppliers, I would put them as suppliers. Yeah, yeah.
I'll just put stands What else did you say?
Stands, point of sale, so POS, point of sale material, payment systems, so guys that are in payments. I mean that kind of covers, I think, all the basics as far as that's concerned.
That's good. So that gives us already a lot to say. And the real estate agents, are they a separate group, or do they fit?
Well, no, I think the real estate agents we could actually add with operators and landlords, because they fall under that, because they're obviously operating under the same kind of parameters as maybe a landlord or a location.
Yeah, awesome. So if we just move this one now into a perspective of what is the relationship between these ones. So of course we have you as the course creator.
Yeah.
Then we have like suppliers who are supplying different materials and topics, and then we have the operators, landlords, and I'm just adding you. Just call it Stephen. Make it green. So what are the relationships between these ones, if we just focus on these ones?
Okay, so go on.
Just shoot.
Well, so the relationship between me and the users would be all of the foundation work that they would need to get their pop-up underway. We talk about the 7 secrets to success, which I think is actually going to be the foundation of what this course is will be structured upon.
Yeah.
But that relationship as a advisor, as a negotiator, and so on. So that's that relationship. I think in that perspective. Trainer, strategy, all comes into part of that for the key users.
Okay, so that's your relationship between yourself and the users. What about the users and the suppliers, or the users and the operators? Are there relationships?
So the relationships for the suppliers would probably be with the key users. Obviously for the advising on the materials they might want to use, the displays that they might want to use. So that's very much a sales and advisory role in that relationship. Just as you would probably for any supplier relationship in that respect. Suppliers to landlords is also perhaps an opportunity for them in terms of if you've already got pop-up underway, or you've got locations underway, and you need to dress windows, or you want to put vinyls on windows, here's a relationship perhaps that could develop where mall owner A goes to supplier B and says, we have an empty shop front, we want to start promoting it as a pop-up location. So I think there's a sales and advisory role as far as those two are concerned.
And that's then mainly going from the supplier towards the operators. Understand you right?
Yeah.
That's the same here, right?
Correct.
So it's going basically that way.
Yeah.
Just want to make it visual for us, then we'll be able to see that afterwards. It's not nice and sexy yet, but
that's okay. We'll do nice and sexy later, don't worry.
Context is more important right now. Okay. So what about yourself and the suppliers?
So really, I guess that's the conduit. I'm the conduit between the two. So my relationship is that I want to establish, worthwhile suppliers. So people, that I know can deliver, that understand what the key users would be looking for, and be able to offer, good value as far as that's concerned. So, can they deliver on time? Do they understand retail in terms of, retail is a really different animal from most things. It's not, it can't just be a, somebody that sells something and thinks, oh, that fits. I truly believe that the suppliers have to have some kind of synergy with retail work or stuff that they've done previously. So for me, I think it's establishing who those guys are and vetting those suppliers, so that I can say to both landlords and key users, yeah, look, we've either worked with these guys or we've vetted these guys, we've seen their work, we've validated what they do, and so I think there's somebody that you should be looking at.
Yeah. So the key part is vetting, then, if I understand you right.
Yeah.
Good. What about yourself and the operators?
Yeah, so very similar to the key users, I think, in terms of advising around the types of pop-ups that would want to be there. Obviously, maybe creating a pop-up strategy for their location. Obviously, there's a lot of mall owners, obviously, that have teams in place, and I've already done, training with commercialization teams around, how to attract pop-ups and new retailing, new retailers to locations. So I think that's very much, the advisor and the strategist around that, which also includes, how you market those opportunities and so on. So that's the relationship the other way around.
So that gives us already a very good picture. So if we have this, we take again the key ones and look into what are their challenges right now. So we are in 2021. We're in COVID, whatever round of lockdown we are right now, depending where you look at. But so there will be challenges they have outside of COVID, which they have had before, and which will be staying as well after COVID is gone, or at least taken care of in a way that we can go back to something that's kind of normal, or the new normal. So it's a bit of both, because we need to be connected to what's happening right now, and we need to as well be connected to what the future will be. So from a challenge perspective, what do you see the challenges of the key users?
Key users right now will be, and will always be, finding the right location at the right price. That's always been the challenge with pop-up retailing. So the right location at the right cost. The other challenges that they frequently face are, finding the right team members, people that will actually run the locations for them, and then obviously how to market that location effectively to pull people into the pop-up. The other challenges that they always face are, supply. So making sure that they've got a proper supply chain set up for product, because and I've seen this happen a number of times. You become far more successful than you believe, and then all of a sudden we haven't got anything to sell now. We've got to wait 2 weeks. So that's a big that's a big part of doing this. I also think from a planning perspective, the challenges are that people can't react quick enough to success or failure. And I say both of those. The reaction to success is, this is going well. Are we extending where we are, or are we starting to look for another location? but the failure is this isn't going well. How do we either change what we're doing or really evaluate what we're doing and what we're doing well and what we're not doing so well, so that we can make it a success.
Yeah.
And I think as with a lot of retailing, people just think turn up, turn the lights on, open the doors, people are going to come and buy from me, and that obviously even nowadays that isn't the case. The other key challenge for key users, I think, is that they've really got to get to grips with being smart using the new technologies that are available to us. And I'm not just talking about payment technology. I'm talking about social media technology, online purchasing, click and collect from their own stands, and so on. So I think they're the key. What have we got there? We've got 6, 7, I guess, in many ways.
Yeah. So what about the suppliers? What are their key challenges?
I think the supplier key challenges are I guess being able to meet the demand of the users at a reasonable cost. I mean, we're talking, if you're setting up a pop-up that people will have a budget, so we can't have or wouldn't want to have suppliers that are just going to price themselves out in the market or give try and sell them a Bentley when really all they need is a Toyota Camry. So I think that's the part. Meeting the demand of supply, of course, their pricing. The other challenge, and this is why I think it's important that these suppliers have to have some foundation in retail, is actually being understanding designs or ways in which to communicate effectively with retailers, and then maybe the other challenge that suppliers have is knowing how to get in contact with these people. There's this huge foundation of pop-up retailers, e-commerce retailers, existing retailers that if you've got, let's say you have an amazing pop-up shop kit that's fixtures and fittings and so on. Where do you go to find those people? So managing that contact and finding those people, I think they're the key challenges for suppliers in that respect.
Is it more relationship management or more the reach?
I think it's more relationship reach. How do they communicate with new business? How do they find new business? Yeah.
Good. Operators, what are the challenges?
Challenges for operators are finding sustainable users. So and there is a lot of there are a lot of landlords that are kind of like, well, we would prefer somebody that's been trading for a couple of years or has a very strong online presence. So that does make it difficult for startups with some locations. So finding sustainable users, I think offering them support and advice. Now, again, that's kind of the role that I'm doing within there, but just on a day-to-day basis, in terms of making sure that they have all of the things that they might need, strong internet connection, power, and being on the ground to kind of feed back to people that this is what we see going on. So I think that's one of the challenges they face. The other area, of course, is for those popular landlords is perhaps sometimes not having enough space because they are so popular. So either they try and cram people in, or aren't very good at maybe managing that opportunity perhaps somewhere else in their portfolio. So I think the overall the overall strategy of what do we do with our users going forward, becomes a challenge. The only people I've seen do this really well is Westfields. If I'm sure everybody knows Westfields, where they would literally nurture somebody from a pop-up through a kiosk, into an inline store and then across the portfolio. So I don't think, I think one of the challenges landlords have is that they don't have they don't have a long-term strategy for pop-ups. I think it's very much we want you in, we want your money, operate, do what you need to do, and then, bye-bye, thank you very much. So I think that's it. And then maybe that landlords, there are some landlords that have just not turned on to the idea of pop-up retailing in any way, shape or form, that they see it as, they either don't have a mechanism in place to manage it, or they feel it's, they don't see the value in it. So I think there's the understanding the value of retail, the perception of pop-up, I think is very different as well.
I hope they understand the value of retail in itself.
Well, you would hope so, but one never knows.
Going to you, what are your challenges?
I think my biggest challenge with both of these is that the key users are kind of like, yeah, okay, I kind of get it, I can go off and do it with just a little bit of knowledge. So my key challenge, I think, is educating these people in a better way, right? On both sides, both landlords and users. So better education, I think, is the challenge for that. My own personal challenges around that, I think, is my brand. Whilst if you Google the pop-up expert, I'm the #1 hit on Google, right? My personal brand isn't nearly as strong as I would love it to be. So I think that there's a lot of work that I can do on that. So that's just being very raw about where my business sits. And I think the other key challenge is trying to reach as many people as I possibly can through this. And this isn't something that just sits in the US. This is something that's global. What we're talking about creating just doesn't work in Minnesota or in San Diego. It works in Berlin, it works in London, it works in Lagos, it works in Sydney. So I think that and that falls under the better education side of things as well. So scaling better educational personal brand strength, and the other challenge I think people don't, from my perspective, don't get is the real value in terms of what's on offer. So I think that there's an undervalue of what this is about, or it's kind of like, oh yeah, but it's easy to do. I'm not sure how we that maybe the value proposition.
Is it unclear or not?
I think it is unclear, because if you boil it down to its rawest form, like I said, people just feel that, yes, you just turn up and you just, you put your stuff out and you stand somebody by the merchandise, or you turn the lights on, you open the door and it happens. But it doesn't. There are all of these things. You don't just put petrol in the tank of a car and it automatically goes. There's a whole engine in there that's doing different functions and so on. So I think people don't understand the engine that drives it. It's very simple. You put product in one end, you have a location at the other, and everything else takes care of itself. So that I think is there's a simplicity about it that is actually far more complex than people realize.
Yeah, and it's just giving another analogy to that. It's like being a running coach, where everyone believes, hey, I can run,
Yeah.
So why do I need a running coach? But then when you have, like, when you ever had a running coach, then you think like, oh, I can't run.
Yeah.
When you
No,
have had a
exactly.
video coaching with a running coach where he or she was taking a video of you running, then you think like, holy crap, I'm not running at all as I should be. No wonder that my knees are hurting or whatever. It's similar to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
That's a lot. That's super good. So if we
Yeah. Okay.
if we look at this from mapping out the opportunities you just see when you're digging into this.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the opportunities you see when you think win-win?
The opportunities are clearly a better way to educate, okay, which wins clients, which helps grow clients, which means that there's sustainable, you know, a longer term sustainable business. The developing and helping operators create their pop-up strategy and understand the value and you know really that, you know, there's a huge business in this. I think is a win, is a big opportunity.
And can you define that more clear? So what is the difference between education and that?
Well, actually, I think it's you've got education on two sides. Then you've got user education and operator education, because they are different. They're different different aspects.
Yeah,
So I
that's
see
good.
that as one of the main opportunities. In terms of the suppliers, I mean, yes, look, there's an opportunity to create relationships with suppliers that one can rely on. Where that might go in terms of maybe, you know, education with them, or teaching or showing them and teaching them how to get to, you know, operators or users. Perhaps there is something there is something within that. The
Is
obviously the big
it kind of networking or
um for the
more?
suppliers, yeah, I mean that is a lot of networking and recommendation for sure. Yeah.
I already see a lot of things which might not go into the online course, but might be other products you could be easily building.
Right. So the and then, you know, so the opportunities are for people to understand, and again, this does fall under the education side of it, but understand, you know, what makes a great location. You know, what are you looking for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Understanding what the demographic of a location is, understanding you know what payment method people would prefer. I mean, there are malls where predominantly you know, consumers are cash buyers. There are malls where predominantly people are you know, plastic and tap and go. So you know, and again, that falls under that whole education thing. So I think that's a real opportunity for you know, what makes a great location. Then there's all the key aspects about the operation of that. You know, so how do you operate effectively? How do you offer amazing customer service? How do you merchandise effectively? How do you price? How do you understand your numbers? And I think there's a huge part of that. I did a seminar a couple of years ago, and there were about 1,000 people in the room. And when I asked people, if hands up, you know, people who knew what their average margin was in their business, you know, profit margin, you know, there were about 30 hands went up in a
No
room
way.
of supposedly 1,000 businesses. The other one that really surprised me was, you know, how many of you got an exit strategy? And I think there were 2 hands went up on that. So
Yeah.
I also think that a part of for both operators and landlords is how you create a business plan around your pop-up activity, and perhaps that's that's another key opportunity, that there is a there's a creation of a real pop-up business template to help people manage their business through.
I think that's awesome. Why I was asking about the win-win, which you perfectly explained. Basically, if you work on an educational system for everyone in that space, everyone will win.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of businesses don't understand. If you look at challenges of, let's say, if this is your market, this is your ecosystem where you are involved with your business. If you look into creating a win-win between everyone inside the ecosystem, you will win. So there's if you do this strategically, there's no way that you can't win. And that's why I think an online course or something around education for you is the awesome thing. Because if we look into building a business which is around the educational topic, which you do, I know already, which will give you on the back end, it gives you clients, because there will be people who are interested into helping. If you just take the couple of things, helping them with the strategy, helping them with the different understandings of how they can do that on the different sides. So that's the after effect will be huge for you if you have a good educational product, because people understand that you're the experts, and that's why I think it's super good status. So now comes the fun part. If we look into and organizing that into a funnel. So if from a sequence perspective, in the best case, you take one thing first, and that's influencing a lot of things, and then it's like, what is the thing? Looking into the opportunities, what is the opportunity you would be tackling first, second, third, having this ones?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the user education, it would be the first one to tackle, purely because the operators already exist, right? There is space available, so that's but I think that's the second one, is that there's still a lot of work to do in terms of operator education around your strategy. How are you attracting? What can you do to support? How do you grow? So I think they're the two. They would be the two instant wins as far as that's concerned.
So if users first, operators and landlords second, what's third?
So third I think is suppliers, in terms of how do you reach these, how do you reach pop-ups, how do you reach landlords, what does your offer have to be? So I think that there's a supplier education as part of that. I don't see that nearly as being as big as the first two, but I think it's a process worth going through for these people, because there's a whole industry out there that maybe they're not tapped into.
What I love with your strategy right now, if have been working in that field myself, working with operations in shopping malls and retail myself, is if you educate the users, they will be educating the operators on the go as well. So if it's like the domino effect is already working. When you start with the user education, they will be educating the operators and suppliers already. So when you, let's say, when you work then afterwards with the operators and suppliers, they have already heard of it in the best case. So I love that way of thinking. It's really cool.
Great, thank you.
We have done a lot. So it's basically what we did until now, and I think we should be closing it with this perspective right now, because if we move on to the next phase, it will be too long and people might not be listening.
No, I agree. There's only so much of us they can take, Jens, right?
Yeah. So I think it's awesome. You basically have deconstructed a perspective of your ecosystem and mapped out the opportunities which help you now to dial in into, let's say, if you look into, okay, what is the first product I would be looking into? You basically said from an opportunity funnel, the biggest opportunity is in educating the users.
Mm-hmm.
So what we are doing next is looking at that first, where we say, okay,
Yeah.
how would that look like if you build something around the users, where we dial into what are the users, what are the needs, dreams, and desires, and then work with them going forward. But that's then the next session.
Cool. Excellent. Excellent.
Awesome. I'll be stop sharing so that I can see you properly. So what do you think? First
listen,
one.
do you know something? Just like kind of going through that, I'm sitting here kind of having little mini flashbacks to when we very, very first started the business.
Yeah, I know.
And thinking, shit, I forgot why. I mean, it's very clear to me, but either you forget things or you just get so involved in something that your focus wanes or your so sorry, let me rephrase this, because I'm really, really excited about it. I've got all these thoughts rushing around my fucking head right now. The business was always built on users first.
Yeah.
Right, because you knew the locations are there, right, and so the education of operators is very much, well, are you maximizing the space? What are you doing to attract other people? Why aren't you doing this? And that, but there's a huge part of the market that already exists. But
Yeah.
but all of the businesses that I've created and sold have always focused on the user first, and you've just like honed me back in on that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
specifically which we do in the next session, where we go into building it up. That's the number one thing you should be doing, building everything you do based on the user or on the customer, client, whatever your business is about.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just building a product and trying to sell something to someone. That's we will go into that in the next session. So
cool.
That's it for today. Any departing words?
Are you pleased with it? I mean, is that where you thought we were going to go? I mean, were there any surprises in there for you? Yeah.
No, for me, it's interesting that it's so clear for you. So I have done this process like tons of time, and a lot of people struggle with doing that. And for you, it's like, and for everyone who is listening, I haven't told him anything about the questions I will be asking. So you're very clear on that, which means you have a clear understanding of that, and I think that's why the process will get us very, very fast into a prototyping understanding. I mean, this is already a prototyping understanding of, hey, let's try to find possible users, possible people who would love to be educated before we even start building the online course.
Start doing it. Yeah.
Because that's like validating your assumptions. And I think that's an interesting perspective where we can get fairly fast within the next 2 weeks in. And then as well, everyone who is listening, bringing the people in and answering questions. I think there's a lot to learn from you and your perspective of the different market topics, of the different users, of the operators, landlords, and as well suppliers. So I think that's already a value in itself.